Now, let's talk about the leak from Paris, the damning new evidence that changes everything. Sources deep within the French investigative team, reportedly disillusioned by what they perceive as political pressure to close the case prematurely, have allegedly released internal documents and forensic findings that completely shatter the official suicide theory. The most immediate and stunning piece of evidence revolves around the so-called suicide note, or rather, the disturbing message Mthethwa sent to his wife. While initial reports claimed it was an apology expressing suicidal intent, the leaked documents purportedly contain the full, unedited transcript and metadata of the communication. This transcript, we are told, reveals a far more ambiguous and frantic message, one that sounded less like a goodbye and more like an SOS. The key is the metadata. Analysis of the timestamps and location data reveals the message was not sent from the hotel room, but from a location several blocks away, a detail suggesting Mthethwa was either lured or forced from the room after the initial struggle, or that the message was pre-prepared and sent by someone else entirely to establish the suicide narrative. This is a complete game-changer, immediately introducing a third party and obliterating the narrative of a solitary, self-inflicted act. But the most compelling and physically damning evidence concerns the scene of the alleged leap. French investigators initially noted no signs of struggle, but the new evidence leak centers on the forensic analysis of the hotel room itself, particularly the forced open window. The leaked documents allegedly contain detailed photos and lab reports. While the safety mechanism was indeed forced, the force exerted was reportedly inconsistent with Mthethwa's physical profile, raising the specter of a much younger, or perhaps a more professionally trained individual being responsible. Even more crucially, trace evidence discovered under the window and on the pair of scissors supposedly used, reportedly yielded DNA that does not belong to Ambassador Mthethwa. This non-Mthethwa DNA, we understand, has been run through international databases, creating a catastrophic internal conflict for the authorities trying to maintain the suicide story. This one piece of evidence, foreign DNA at the point of origin, transforms the case from a tragedy into an active, high-profile murder investigation. Who were the last people Mthethwa encountered? The person or persons whose DNA was found on those scissors and near the window are, simply put, his killers. The story now pivots from a tragedy to a conspiracy. If Mthethwa was murdered, the question becomes who had the motive, the reach, and the sophisticated coordination to execute a hit on a sitting ambassador in one of the most monitored cities in the world, and then managed to frame it as a suicide that fooled the initial French authorities? The answer, according to those familiar with the toxic internal politics Mthethwa was facing, leads directly back to South Africa's dark web of corruption and the powerful figures implicated in state capture. Mthethwa was a link in a very fragile chain. His death could protect dozens of people from facing prosecution or even political ruin. The killers exposed by this Paris leak are not just the individuals who physically overpowered him in that 22nd floor room. The exposure points to the political masters who commissioned the entire operation. This wasn't a random crime. It was a targeted, professional assassination designed to look like a desperate final act. The international diplomatic community is now grappling with the fact that one of their own was likely eliminated due to the secrets he carried. The new evidence forces us to re-examine Mthethwa's movements in the days leading up to his death. Why was he at the Hyatt, away from his official residence? Sources suggest that Mthethwa may have been on the cusp of an explosive decision, contemplating turning state witness or leaking crucial documents himself, documents that could tie political rivals directly to corruption or even other past unsolved crimes. The pressure, therefore, was not merely depressive, it was external, immediate, and lethal. His presence at the hotel could have been a pre-arranged meeting, a desperate handover, or perhaps, a final trap set by those closest to him. The timeline suggests a meticulously planned operation, the hotel booking 10 days prior, the forced entry of the window, the suicide message sent from a distance, each step calculated to create a false narrative that would crumble under the weight of genuine forensic scrutiny. The identity of the DNA discovered, although unconfirmed in public records, is reportedly a critical piece of the puzzle, a name that could connect the Paris hotel room to the shadowy operatives frequently employed by South Africa's deep state to silence dissent and erase inconvenient truths. The implications of this French leak are enormous, both for international relations and for the ongoing fight against corruption in South Africa. The leak essentially serves as an indictment of the initial investigation, suggesting a possible failure, or even complicity, in accepting the easy answer. It demands a parallel, independent, and international investigation, one that cannot be derailed by domestic political interference. The phrase "justice for Mthethwa" is now echoing across the globe, not just for the man himself, but for every whistleblower and individual who has fallen silent after challenging the immense, corrupt machinery of the state. This is not just a murder, it is an attack on the fundamental principle of accountability, a bold message sent by the powerful to anyone who dares to speak out. The killers, both the operatives and their political paymasters, believed they were untouchable, that the distance of Paris and the elegance of a suicide narrative would shield them. But in the age of global communication and relentless investigative journalism, secrets, particularly those stained with the blood of a public servant, have a difficult time remaining buried. As we move toward the conclusion of this complex, evolving tragedy, the focus shifts to the unfolding legal and diplomatic fallout. South African authorities are now under immense pressure to formally acknowledge the leaked evidence and launch a full-scale murder investigation, perhaps utilizing the Mutual Legal Assistance Treaty to compel French officials to share the complete file. The families of the deceased are demanding answers, refusing to accept the convenient suicide ruling. This case, Mthethwa's killers exposed as damning new evidence is leaked from Paris, is not just about a death. It is about the long, dark shadow of political corruption that stretches across continents, and a chilling reminder that in the world of high-stakes power, some individuals are simply too dangerous to keep alive. The identity of the individuals whose DNA was found, the true content of that final message, and the full extent of the conspiracy are on the verge of being revealed, promising a reckoning that will shake the political landscape to its very foundations. This story is far from over, and we will continue to follow the paper trail, the money, the power, and the terrifying secrets that led to the 22nd floor of that Paris hotel until the real killers are brought to justice.